My name is Sarah Martinez, and at 28, I never imagined that a simple trip to the corner gas station would become the moment my entire family's world turned upside down. I never expected buying a lottery ticket on a random Tuesday would become the sweetest revenge I could have ever asked for against the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. Standing in my modest one-bedroom apartment, staring at those 6 magical numbers on my phone screen should have been simply joyful. But years of being treated like the family disappointment, the forgotten daughter, the one who never quite measured up, had built up to this moment. I still hear their cold words echoing in my mind like a broken record. Sarah just doesn't have what it takes. She's not like Emma. We can't waste our resources on false hope. The memory of that Christmas dinner 3 years ago when they announced Emma's wedding fund, a fund I was never told existed, despite being the older daughter, still stings like salt in an open wound. Before I reveal what made their faces turn ghostly pale when I showed up to Emma's engagement party in a brand new Mercedes, carrying news that would change everything, if you've ever had to fight twice as hard for half the recognition. If you've ever been the forgotten child in your own family, hit that like button because this story is for everyone who's ever been underestimated. I grew up in what appeared to be a typical middle-class family in Phoenix, Arizona. Our ranch-style home, with its manicured desert landscaping and 2-car garage, projected the image of suburban success. My parents, Michael and Patricia Martinez, maintained steady careers, Dad as a regional sales manager and Mom as a dental hygienist. We weren't rich, but we lived comfortably enough that I never questioned whether opportunities would be available to me. My sister Emma was 3 years younger than me, but from the moment she could walk and talk, she commanded attention in ways I never could. With her glossy dark hair that caught light like silk, her infectious laugh that could charm anyone within earshot, and her natural ability to excel at everything she touched, Emma became the golden child I could never compete with. The preferential treatment started small, so subtle that for years, I convinced myself I was imagining it. When we were kids, Emma got the newer bike while I inherited hand-me-downs. Her birthday parties were elaborate affairs with themes and decorations, while mine were simple cake and ice cream gatherings. I told myself it was because she was younger, because she needed more attention. But as we grew older, the disparities became impossible to ignore. When Emma expressed interest in piano lessons at age 7, my parents immediately enrolled her with the best teacher in town, Mrs. Henderson, who charged $80 per hour. When I had asked for guitar lessons at age 10, I was told we needed to see how committed I was first, and was given a second-hand acoustic guitar from a garage sale with instructions to teach myself using YouTube. The academic expectations were perhaps the most telling. Emma brought home A's and B's to celebrations and rewards. When I brought home the same grades, it was met with "That's nice, honey," before the conversation moved on to something else. But when Emma occasionally brought home AC, it prompted family meetings about getting her additional tutoring and support. "We need to make sure Emma reaches her full potential," Dad would say during these discussions, never seeming to notice that I was sitting right there, never asking about my potential. The summer I turned 16, I desperately wanted to attend a creative writing camp at the local university. The cost was $1,200 for 2 weeks, and I had saved $800 from babysitting jobs over the previous year. I needed just $400 more, and I approached my parents with a detailed plan of how I could work additional hours to pay them back. "Sarah, that's a lot of money for something that might not lead anywhere practical," Mom said, not even looking up from the bills she was sorting. "You should focus on more realistic goals." 2 months later, Emma casually mentioned she wanted to try competitive swimming. Within a week, she had a $1,500 training package paid for, complete with private coaching sessions, specialized equipment, and registration for travel meets. When I pointed out the discrepancy, Dad's response cut deep. Emma has natural talent. We're investing in her strengths. The implication was clear. I apparently had no strengths worth investing in. This pattern continued through high school. Emma got a car for her 16th birthday, not new, but a reliable Honda Civic that she named Buttercup. When I turned 16 6 months earlier, I was told that having a car was a privilege to be earned, and I spent the next 2 years walking, biking, or bumming rides to get anywhere. College planning revealed the true extent of the favoritism. Despite maintaining a 3.8 GPA throughout high school, being involved in student government, and working part-time jobs, my college fund totaled exactly $3,000. Emma, with her 3.6 GPA and long list of extracurricular activities that our parents had funded, had a college fund of $35,000. We started saving earlier for Emma, Mom explained when I discovered this, her voice defensive. We learned from our mistakes with your planning. But I knew the truth. They had simply cared more about Emma's future than mine. The person who saw through this unfair treatment was my maternal grandmother, Abuela Rosa. She lived in a small casita behind our house and had watched the family dynamics with increasingly concerned eyes. Mija, she would tell me in her kitchen that always smelled of fresh tortillas and café con leche. Your parents, they love you both, but they don't see you clearly. Emma shines bright like a firework, loud and colorful and impossible to ignore. But you're like a steady flame. Quiet, reliable, burning strong even when no one's watching. Abuela Rosa was the only one who celebrated my achievements. When I won second place in the state essay contest, she framed the certificate and hung it prominently in her kitchen. When I was elected junior class secretary, she bought me a beautiful leather planner and wrote inside the cover, "For my granddaughter, the leader." She also provided practical support that my parents never offered. When I needed professional clothes for job interviews, Abuela Rosa took me shopping. When I needed a reliable laptop for college, she quietly helped me purchase one. She attended every school event where I was participating, even when my own parents were too busy with Emma's activities. Your time will come, Mija, she would say, squeezing my hand. Some people bloom early, and some people bloom when the world is ready to appreciate their beauty. The moment that changed everything happened during Christmas of my senior year of college. I had graduated summa cum laude with a degree in business administration and had just accepted a position with a marketing firm in downtown Phoenix. I was proud of what I had accomplished, especially considering I had worked 3 jobs to pay for school while maintaining my grades. Emma was finishing her sophomore year at Arizona State University, where she was majoring in communications with a minor in psychology. Her grades were solid, and she was involved in her sorority, but she hadn't yet declared any specific career goals. The family was gathered around our dining room table, which Mom had decorated with her usual elaborate Christmas centerpiece. The conversation was flowing easily. Dad was telling stories from his company's holiday party, Mom was complaining about difficult patients, and Emma was regaling us with tales from her sorority's recent formal dance. I had been waiting for the right moment to share my news about the job offer. It was a good position with room for growth, and I was excited about starting my career. But every time I tried to interject, the conversation seemed to move in another direction. Finally, during a lull in Emma's story about her sorority sister's dramatic breakup, I cleared my throat. I have some exciting news to share. Oh, that's nice, honey. Mom said absently, already turning her attention to clearing some dishes. Emma, finish telling us about Jessica and her boyfriend. Mom, please, I said, my voice slightly more firm. I'd really like to share this with everyone. The table fell quiet, and I felt all eyes on me. It should have been my moment. I got the job at Morrison & Associates, the marketing position I interviewed for last month. They offered me $45,000 to start, with full benefits and opportunities for advancement. There was a moment of silence before Dad nodded. That's good, Sarah. Sounds like a solid start. A solid start, I repeated, feeling deflated. I had expected more enthusiasm, maybe some questions about the company or my responsibilities. Well, Mom said, glancing at Dad with a look I couldn't quite decipher, since we're sharing news, your father and I have something to tell you girls too. Dad reached under his chair and pulled out a gift bag I hadn't noticed before. Emma, this is for you. Emma looked confused but excited as she accepted the bag. Inside was a small velvet box. When she opened it, she gasped. Oh my God, are you serious? She pulled out a beautiful diamond tennis bracelet that caught the light from our chandelier. What's the occasion? Emma asked, fastening the bracelet around her wrist. Mom and Dad exchanged another look before Mom spoke. Well, we've been thinking about your future, sweetheart. You're doing so well in school, and we know how expensive it is to get established after graduation. So we've decided to set up a trust fund for you. The room seemed to tilt slightly. A trust fund? I heard myself ask. Yes, Dad continued, his voice warm with pride. We've managed to save $50,000 that will be available to Emma when she graduates. For a down payment on a house, or to help start a business, or whatever she needs to get launched properly. Emma squealed and jumped up to hug both parents. This is incredible. I can't believe you did this. I sat frozen in my chair, my news about the job suddenly feeling insignificant. $50,000? I managed to ask. We want to make sure Emma has every opportunity to succeed, Mom explained. You know how competitive it is out there for young people today. The irony was crushing. Here I was, having already succeeded despite receiving minimal support, while Emma was being rewarded with a massive financial gift before she had even graduated or demonstrated any career direction. What about Sarah? Abuela Rosa's voice cut through the celebration. She had been quietly observing from her chair in the corner, and her question hung in the air like smoke. Another silence fell over the table, this one uncomfortable. Well, Dad said carefully, Sarah is already established with her job. She's proven she can make it on her own. So, because I managed to succeed without help, I don't deserve any? The words came out sharper than I intended. Sarah, don't be dramatic, Mom said, her voice taking on that dismissive tone I knew so well. You're doing fine. Emma needs more support right now. Emma needs more support? I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Emma, who's had every opportunity handed to her. Emma, who had her college fund fully paid for while I worked 3 jobs. Emma, who gets celebrated for the same grades that I was ignored for. That's enough. Dad's voice was firm. We're not going to ruin Christmas with this attitude. My attitude? I could feel years of resentment bubbling to the surface. I just told you I landed a great job after graduating with honors, and your response was that's good. Emma gets a $50,000 trust fund for maintaining AB average. Emma looked uncomfortable for the first time. Sarah, I didn't ask for this. I know you didn't, I said, and I meant it. This isn't about you, Emma. This is about them. I gestured toward our parents. Sarah, you're being unreasonable, Mom said. We've always treated you girls fairly. That's when Abuela Rosa stood up. At 78, she might have been small in stature, but her presence filled the room. Patricia, Michael, I love you both, but that is not true. Rosa, please don't, Dad started. No, I have watched for too many years, Abuela Rosa interrupted, her accent becoming thicker as her emotions rose. Sarah has worked twice as hard for half the recognition. She paid for her own college, bought her own car, found her own job, and still you treat her like she has done something wrong by being independent. That's not, Mom began. Emma is a beautiful girl with a bright future, Abuela Rosa continued, but Sarah has been proving herself for years while you looked the other way. You want to give Emma money she hasn't earned while Sarah has earned everything herself. This is not fair, and you know it. The silence that followed was deafening. Dad's jaw was tight, and Mom's face had flushed red. Emma was staring at her bracelet, and I felt like I might cry or scream or both. I think, I said quietly, I should go. Sarah, don't leave like this, Emma said softly. I can't stay, I replied, grabbing my purse from the counter. I can't sit here and pretend this is normal. As I headed toward the door, I heard Mom say, she'll get over it. She always does. But I wouldn't get over it. Not this time. The months following that Christmas dinner were some of the loneliest of my life. I threw myself into my new job at Morrison & Associates, working 60-hour weeks and taking on every project that came my way. The work was challenging and rewarding, but coming home to my empty apartment each night reminded me of how isolated I had become from my family. Emma tried to reach out several times, texting and calling to check on me. I appreciated her efforts, but I wasn't ready to pretend everything was fine. Our parents made no attempt to contact me, which somehow hurt more than I expected, even though it wasn't surprising. The only family member who remained consistently in my life was Abuela Rosa. She would call me every Sunday evening, and we would talk for hours about everything and nothing. She never pushed me to reconcile with my parents, but she did encourage me to focus on building my own life rather than dwelling on past hurts. Mija, she said during one of our conversations, sometimes the best revenge is success. Show them what they missed by not believing in you. I took her advice to heart. At work, I excelled in ways that surprised even me. My first major campaign for a local restaurant chain increased their customer base by 35% in 6 months. My supervisor, Janet Morrison, began giving me increasingly important clients and projects. Sarah, you have an intuitive understanding of consumer psychology, she told me during my 6-month review. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I rarely see someone with your natural ability to connect with target audiences. The praise felt foreign after years of being overlooked, but I began to believe in my own capabilities in ways I never had before. I started taking calculated risks, proposing bold campaigns that other team members might have been afraid to suggest. 1 year into the job, I pitched a comprehensive rebranding strategy for Phoenix's largest auto dealership group. The presentation took me 3 weeks to prepare, and I was nervous about presenting to their executive team. But the campaign I proposed was innovative and data-driven, addressing specific market gaps I had identified through extensive research. Not only did they accept my proposal, but they also requested that I personally oversee the entire 6-month implementation. The project was worth $200,000 to our firm, and I received a $10,000 bonus along with a promotion to senior marketing strategist. At 25, I was the youngest person in the company's history to reach that level. Around the same time, I decided to start a side business. Using the skills I had developed at Morrison and Associates, I began offering social media marketing services to small local businesses. Working evenings and weekends, I built a client base of restaurants, boutiques, and service providers who couldn't afford large marketing firms but needed professional digital presence. The side business grew organically through word-of-mouth referrals. Within 18 months, I was earning an additional $30,000 per year from freelance work. More importantly, I was building a portfolio of successful campaigns that demonstrated my versatility and entrepreneurial spirit. During this period of professional growth, I also worked on personal development. I started taking evening classes in web design and digital analytics. I joined a professional networking group for young marketers. I began attending industry conferences, often paying my own way because I believed in the long-term value of education and connections. Meanwhile, family news reached me through Abuela Rosa and occasional social media posts. Emma had changed her major twice and was now studying fashion merchandising. She had gotten engaged to her college boyfriend, Marcus, and was planning a summer wedding. The engagement photos on Instagram showed a happy couple surrounded by both families, with mom and dad beaming proudly. I wasn't invited to the engagement party. The exclusion stung, but it also clarified something important. I had been grieving a relationship with parents who had never truly seen or valued me. Their absence from my achievements was painful, but it was also consistent with a lifetime of behavior. Abuela Rosa attended the engagement party and called me afterward. "Mija, they asked about you," she reported. "What did you tell them?" "I told them you were doing very well, that you had been promoted again, and that you were building your own business." Patricia said, "That's nice," and changed the subject to Emma's wedding dress. Even secondhand, the dismissiveness was familiar and hurtful. 2.5 years after that Christmas dinner, I reached a major milestone. My side business had grown large enough that I was earning more from freelance work than from my day job. After careful financial planning and consultation with a business attorney, I made the decision to leave Morrison and Associates and launch my own full-service marketing firm. Janet Morrison was supportive, but sorry to see me go. "You're going to be incredibly successful," she told me on my last day. "You have the rare combination of creative vision and business acumen. Keep in touch. I have a feeling we'll be referring clients to each other soon." Starting my own business was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. I rented a small office space in a converted warehouse in downtown Phoenix, hired a part-time assistant, and threw myself into building something that was entirely my own. The first year was challenging. There were months when I wasn't sure I could make payroll for my assistant. There were nights when I slept on the office couch because I was working 18-hour days to meet client deadlines. There were moments when I questioned whether leaving the security of corporate employment had been a mistake. But there were also victories that made every struggle worthwhile. I landed a contract with a growing tech startup that needed complete brand development from logo design to digital marketing strategy. I successfully rebranded a struggling family restaurant, helping them increase revenue by 60% in 8 months. I was featured in a local business magazine as one of Phoenix's rising young entrepreneurs. By the end of my second year in business, I had 12 employees and was generating over $800,000 in annual revenue. My personal income had tripled from my corporate days, and I was able to move into a beautiful townhouse in Scottsdale, complete with a pool and mountain views. This success felt surreal sometimes. I would sit on my back patio in the evenings, looking out at the desert landscape and thinking about how different my life was from what my parents had expected for me. During all this growth and achievement, my contact with my immediate family remained minimal. Emma and I exchanged birthday cards and holiday texts, but we didn't have real conversations. My parents and I had no contact at all. They hadn't acknowledged my business launch, my promotions, or any of my accomplishments. Abuela Rosa remained my consistent connection to family. She was in her early 80s now and not as mobile as she once was, but her mind was sharp and her support unwavering. She was the only family member who understood the magnitude of what I had built from nothing. "I am so proud of you, Mija," she told me during one of our Sunday calls. "You have become everything I knew you could be." "I wish Mom and Dad could see it," I admitted, surprising myself with the confession. "They will," she said quietly. "Someday they will understand what they missed. But by then, you will be so far beyond needing their approval that it won't matter." Her words proved to be prophetic in ways neither of us could have imagined. It was a Tuesday in March, unremarkable in every way except for the fact that it would become the most important day of my life. I had been working late at the office, putting finishing touches on a presentation for a potential client, a luxury resort chain that could become our biggest account to date. By the time I left the office, it was nearly 9 p.m., and I was exhausted. I stopped at the Shell station 3 blocks from my townhouse to grab a bottle of water and maybe some snacks for dinner, since I had forgotten to eat lunch again. The convenience store was nearly empty except for the clerk, a middle-aged man named Raj, who I had gotten to know over the past year of frequent late-night stops. He was always friendly, asking about my work and sharing stories about his daughter, who was studying to become a nurse. "Working late again, Sarah?" he asked as I approached the counter with my water and a bag of trail mix. "Always," I replied with a tired smile. "But it's good busy." As he rang up my items, I noticed the Powerball jackpot display behind the counter. $347 million. The number was so large it seemed abstract, like a fantasy football score rather than real money. "Someone's going to be very happy tomorrow night," Raj commented, following my gaze. I had never been a regular lottery player. Occasionally, if the jackpot was particularly large, I might buy a ticket on impulse, but I never expected to win anything significant. Lottery tickets felt like entertainment expenses rather than investments. But something about that moment, maybe it was the exhaustion, maybe it was the surreal size of the jackpot, maybe it was just random impulse, made me say, "Give me 5 quick picks for tomorrow's drawing." "Feeling lucky?" Raj asked as he printed the tickets. "Feeling curious," I replied, handing him a $20 bill. He gave me my change and the tickets, and I tucked them into my wallet without looking at the numbers. "Good luck," he called as I headed toward the door. I drove home, ate my trail mix for dinner while reviewing client files, and fell asleep on my couch around midnight with my laptop still open on my chest. The next evening, I was having dinner with Abuela Rosa at her favorite Mexican restaurant when my phone buzzed with a news notification. Powerball jackpot won. Single ticket sold in Phoenix matches all 6 numbers. Someone in Phoenix just became very wealthy, I told Abuela Rosa, showing her my phone screen. "I imagine that," she said, shaking her head. "All that money for one person. I hope they do good things with it." We finished our dinner and talked about her plans for her upcoming 82nd birthday. I drove her home around 8 p.m., and we hugged goodbye in her driveway. "I love you, Mija," she said, holding me a little longer than usual. "I love you too, Abuela." It wasn't until I was getting ready for bed that I remembered the lottery tickets in my wallet. More out of curiosity than hope, I pulled them out and opened the lottery app on my phone to check the winning numbers. The winning numbers were 7, 21, 35, 44, 52, and Powerball 18. I looked at my first ticket. 12, 28, 33, 41, 49, Powerball 8. No match. Second ticket. 3, 17, 25, 38, 46, Powerball 22. No match. Third ticket. 15, 29, 36, 42, 51, Powerball 11. No match. Fourth ticket. 8, 19, 31, 45, 53, Powerball 14. No match. I almost didn't bother checking the fifth ticket. The odds were astronomical, and I had never won more than $20 on a scratch-off ticket in my entire life. But I looked anyway. Fifth ticket. 7, 21, 35, 44, 52, Powerball 18. I stared at the numbers for a full minute, certain I was misreading them. I checked the winning numbers again. Then I looked at my ticket again. They matched. Every single number matched. I had won $347 million. My hands started shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. I sat down heavily on my bed, still staring at the ticket and the screen, waiting for the numbers to change or for me to wake up from what had to be a dream. But the numbers didn't change. I called the lottery office's verification line and carefully read them my ticket numbers. The automated system confirmed what I already knew but couldn't quite believe. I held the winning ticket for the largest Powerball jackpot in Arizona history. After taxes and choosing the lump sum option, I would receive approximately $178 million. I was 28 years old, and I had just become one of the wealthiest people in Arizona. The first person I called was Abuela Rosa. Mija? It's late. Is everything okay? Abuela, I said, my voice shaking, I need to tell you something incredible. What is it? I won the lottery. The big one. The Powerball jackpot. There was silence on the other end of the line. Abuela? Are you there? See, Mija, I'm here. Did you say the lottery? Yes. $347 million. I have the winning ticket. Dios mío, she whispered. Are you sure? I've checked 20 times. It's real. Then I heard something I had never heard before in all my years of knowing Abuela Rosa. She started crying. Mija, she said through her tears, this is your blessing. After everything you've been through, everything you've worked for, this is God saying you deserve abundance. We talked for 2 hours that night about practical matters, lawyers, financial advisors, security, anonymity. Abuela Rosa, despite her age, had a sharper understanding of wealth management than I would have expected. Don't tell anyone else yet, she advised. Not until you have the right people helping you. Money this big changes everything, including how people see you. Her words proved to be prophetic. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal consultations, financial planning meetings, and security arrangements. I hired one of Phoenix's most prestigious law firms to handle the lottery claim process and began working with a wealth management company that specialized in sudden wealth syndrome. Apparently, it's a real phenomenon that affects lottery winners and inheritance recipients. My attorney, David Chin, was pragmatic about the challenges ahead. Sarah, this amount of money will change every relationship in your life, he warned during our first meeting. People who haven't spoken to you in years will suddenly become your best friends. Family members you barely knew existed will reach out with sob stories and investment opportunities. You need to be prepared for that. I decided to maintain my anonymity for as long as legally possible, which in Arizona meant I could keep my identity private for 90 days after claiming the prize. This gave me time to set up trusts, establish security protocols, and plan how I wanted to manage this dramatic change in circumstances. During this period, I continued running my business as if nothing had changed. My employees had no idea their boss had just become a multimillionaire. I still arrived at the office at 7 a.m., still stayed late to review client campaigns, still worried about cash flow and payroll. But privately, I was transforming everything about my financial life. I paid off my townhouse mortgage, purchased a beautiful estate in Paradise Valley, and set up college funds for my employees' children. I established a charitable foundation focused on providing educational opportunities for underserved youth, something I wished had existed when I was struggling to pay for college. I also did something that felt both generous and strategic. I hired a private investigator to research my family's current financial situation. Not to spy on them, but to understand what kind of help they might actually need versus what they might simply want. The information I received was illuminating. Dad's accounting firm was struggling due to increased competition from larger companies. Mom had been diagnosed with diabetes and was dealing with expensive medical bills not fully covered by insurance. Emma and Marcus had significant student loan debt and were living paycheck to paycheck despite both having college degrees. Despite everything that had happened between us, learning about their struggles didn't bring me satisfaction. I felt sad that my parents were dealing with financial stress and concerned about Mom's health issues. But I also felt something else: power. For the first time in my life, I was in a position to help them, or not, entirely on my own terms. The 90-day anonymity period was approaching its end when I made a decision that would change everything. Emma's engagement party was scheduled for a Saturday evening in early June, exactly 3 months after I had won the lottery. According to Abuela Rosa, it was going to be a large celebration at my parents' house, with extended family, Emma's future in-laws, and close friends all attending. I hadn't been invited, but I decided to attend anyway. I spent considerable time planning my appearance at that party. I wanted to make a statement, but I also wanted to be classy about it. This wasn't about flaunting wealth for its own sake. It was about showing my family exactly what they had dismissed and ignored for nearly 3 decades. I purchased a stunning navy blue dress from Nordstrom, understated but obviously expensive. I had my hair professionally styled and got a manicure for the first time in years. Most importantly, I arranged for a silver Mercedes S-Class to be delivered to my townhouse that afternoon, complete with a chauffeur who would wait during the party and drive me home. The plan was simple: arrive fashionably late, congratulate Emma sincerely, be gracious to everyone present, and leave before anyone could process what they had witnessed. What I didn't anticipate was how dramatically my presence would shift the entire dynamic of the evening. Emma's engagement party was in full swing when I arrived at 7:30 p.m. Cars lined both sides of the street, and I could hear laughter and music floating from the backyard. String lights had been hung throughout the patio area, and the desert landscaping was beautifully illuminated. As my chauffeur opened the car door for me, I took a deep breath and reminded myself why I was here. This wasn't about revenge. Exactly, it was about closure. I needed my family to see who I had become, with or without their support. I walked through the side gate that led to the backyard, and the first person I encountered was my cousin Miguel, who nearly choked on his beer when he saw me. "Sarah? Oh my God, is that really you?" "Hi, Miguel," I said with a genuine smile. "You look great." "So do you." "Wow, you look different." "Amazing. When did you get back in town?" "I never left town," I replied gently. "I've been here the whole time." The confusion on his face was evident, but before he could ask more questions, other family members began noticing my presence. Conversations quieted as people turned to stare, and I realized that my parents had clearly not mentioned our estrangement to the extended family. Tia Carmen, my mom's sister, rushed over to hug me. Mija, we haven't seen you in so long. How are you? What are you doing now? I'm doing very well, Tia. I own a marketing company here in Phoenix. Your own company? That's wonderful. Patricia must be so proud. Before I could respond to that loaded comment, I heard Emma's voice from across the patio. Sarah? Oh my God, Sarah. She rushed toward me, looking genuinely happy and surprised. She was radiant in a flowing white dress, her engagement ring catching the light from the string lights above us. I can't believe you're here, she said, hugging me tightly. You look incredible. That dress is gorgeous. Congratulations, Em, I said, meaning it completely. You look beautiful, and Marcus seems like a wonderful guy. Thank you for coming, she said, and I could see tears forming in her eyes. I wasn't sure. I hoped you would, but I didn't know. I wouldn't miss your engagement party, I told her, squeezing her hand. It was then that I noticed my parents approaching from near the house. Dad looked uncomfortable and uncertain, while Mom's expression was harder to read, surprise mixed with something that might have been annoyance. Sarah, Dad said carefully. This is unexpected. Hello, Dad. Mom. I kept my voice neutral and polite. You look different, Mom said, taking in my appearance with obvious calculation. That's quite a dress. Thank you. An awkward silence stretched between us, filled by the party continuing around us. Other guests were watching our family reunion with obvious curiosity. Well, Mom said finally, I suppose we should get you something to drink. What would you like? Actually, I can't stay long, I replied. I just wanted to congratulate Emma and Marcus. Oh, don't leave so soon. Emma protested. We haven't had a chance to really talk. Where did you park? Dad asked, looking around as if expecting to see my old Honda Civic from college. My driver is waiting out front, I said casually. Your driver? Mom's eyebrows shot up. Yes, I don't like to drive myself to evening events anymore. The implications of that statement hung in the air. Emma looked intrigued, my parents looked confused, and several nearby family members were openly eavesdropping. It was Marcus who broke the tension by approaching with champagne glasses for everyone. Sarah, Emma told me so much about you. I'm Marcus, he said, extending his hand warmly. It's wonderful to meet you, Marcus. Emma is lucky to have found someone who makes her so happy. Actually, I'm the lucky one, he replied, smiling at Emma. So Emma tells me you're an entrepreneur? What kind of business do you run? I own a full-service marketing agency, I explained. We handle everything from brand development to digital marketing campaigns for clients throughout the Southwest. That sounds fascinating, Marcus said genuinely. How many employees do you have? 15 now, I replied. We've been growing pretty rapidly. I noticed Dad's eyebrows raise slightly at this information. A 15-employee company wasn't something to dismiss, even for someone who had spent years underestimating my potential. That's amazing, Sarah, Emma said, her voice filled with pride. I had no idea your business had gotten so big. There's a lot you don't know about my life, I said gently, without accusation. It was then that Abuela Rosa appeared at my elbow. At 82, she moved slowly but with dignity, and her presence immediately commanded respect from everyone in our little circle. Mija, she said, reaching up to cup my face in her weathered hands. You look like a queen. Gracias, Abuela, I replied, kissing her cheek. Rosa, Mom said, her voice tight. "We didn't realize you had spoken to Sarah recently." "I speak to my granddaughter every week," Abuela Rosa replied matter-of-factly. "We have never stopped talking." The implication was clear. While they had cut off contact with me, she had remained a constant presence in my life. "Mom," Emma said softly, "maybe we should all sit down and talk." "It's been too long." "Actually," I said, checking the elegant watch I had purchased the week before, "I really should go." "I have an early morning tomorrow." "What's tomorrow?" Dad asked. "I'm meeting with the board of directors for the Children's Hospital. We're finalizing the details of a partnership between my foundation and their educational programs." "Your foundation?" Mom's voice was sharp with surprise. "Yes, the Martinez Family Foundation. We focus on providing educational opportunities for underserved youth." I could see the wheels turning in my parents' minds. A 15-employee company, a private driver, a charitable foundation, expensive clothes, and a confidence they had never seen in me before. Something significant had changed in my life, but they couldn't quite piece together what it was. "Sarah," Dad said carefully, "it sounds like you're doing very well for yourself." "I am," I replied simply. "Maybe we could have dinner sometime," Mom suggested, though her tone suggested the invitation was motivated more by curiosity than genuine desire to reconnect. "Catch up properly." "I'd like that," I said, surprising myself by meaning it. "But it would have to be genuine, Mom. I'm not interested in pretending the past didn't happen." The directness of my statement seemed to catch her off guard. "Of course," she said after a moment. "We have a lot to discuss." Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from my driver indicating that someone was approaching the car. I glanced toward the front of the house and saw a familiar figure, David Chin, my attorney, walking toward the backyard. This wasn't part of the plan. "Excuse me," I said to the group. "I need to speak with someone." I walked toward David, my mind racing through possible reasons for his unexpected appearance. He was dressed casually in jeans and a polo shirt, but his expression was serious. "David," I said when I reached him. "What's wrong?" "I'm sorry to interrupt," he said quietly, "but we have a situation. Channel 12 somehow got wind of your identity. They're planning to run a story tomorrow morning about Arizona's lottery winner, and they have your name." My stomach dropped. "How is that possible?" "We're not sure yet, but someone leaked information. The 90-day privacy period ends on Monday anyway, so legally there's nothing we can do to stop them." I glanced back toward my family, who were all watching my conversation with obvious curiosity. Emma looked concerned, while my parents appeared to be speculating about who David might be. "What do you recommend?" I asked. "You have two options," David said. "You can try to get ahead of the story by making your own announcement, or you can let them break it and deal with the aftermath." I looked back at my family again, gathered around Emma's engagement party, having no idea that their estranged daughter and sister had just become one of the wealthiest people in the state. An idea began forming in my mind. It was bold, maybe even reckless, but it felt right. "David," I said, "how would you feel about making an announcement right now?" "Right now?" "Here." "Why not?" "My family is all here. I'd rather they hear it from me than from the news." David looked around at the party, taking in the intimate setting and the curious faces watching us. "Are you sure about this, Sarah? Once you tell them, there's no going back. Your life changes forever." "My life already changed forever 3 months ago," I replied. "I'm just ready to stop hiding it." I walked back toward my family, with David following behind me. The conversations around the patio had quieted, and I realized that most of the party guests were now watching me with interest. "Emma," I said, "I'm sorry to interrupt your party, but I have something important to share with everyone." "Of course," she said, though she looked nervous. "What is it?" I took a deep breath and looked around at the faces of my family members, my parents, my sister, my aunts and uncles and cousins, all of whom had witnessed years of my being overlooked and underestimated. 3 months ago, I began, my voice carrying clearly across the patio. I bought a lottery ticket at the Shell station on Indian School Road. It was just an impulse purchase, 5 quick picks for the Powerball drawing. I paused, watching recognition dawn on a few faces. The Phoenix lottery winner had been big news, but since the winner had remained anonymous, speculation had run wild about who it might be. The jackpot that week was $347 million, I continued. And I won it. The silence that followed was deafening. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the mariachi music from the neighbor's yard seemed to pause. Emma was the first to break the silence. "Sarah," she said softly, "are you saying you won the lottery?" "The big lottery." "Yes," I replied. "After taxes and taking the lump sum, I received $178 million. The explosion of voices that followed was overwhelming. Everyone was talking at once, asking questions, expressing disbelief, demanding details. But I was watching my parents' faces. Dad looked like he had been physically struck. His face was pale, and he was gripping his beer bottle so tightly I thought it might shatter. Mom's reaction was different. After the initial shock, I could see her mind working, calculating, processing the implications of what I had just revealed. $178 million, she repeated, her voice barely audible above the chaos around us. "Yes," I confirmed. "You've been a multimillionaire for 3 months and didn't tell us?" Dad's voice was strained. "We haven't spoken in 3 years," I reminded him gently. "And when we did speak, you made it clear that you weren't interested in my achievements." Emma was staring at me with a mixture of awe and confusion. "Sarah, this is incredible. But why didn't you tell me?" "I mean, I know things have been complicated with Mom and Dad, but I thought we were okay." "We are okay," I assured her. But I needed time to process this change myself before I could share it with anyone. The only person who knew was Abuela Rosa. All eyes turned to Abuela Rosa, who was sitting in her chair with a small, satisfied smile on her face. "You knew?" Mom asked, her voice accusatory. "Of course I knew," Abuela Rosa replied calmly. "Sarah tells me everything important in her life. We talk every week." The implication hung heavy in the air. While my parents had been absent from my life, my 82-year-old grandmother had been my consistent confidant and supporter. So the business, the foundation, the driver. Dad was connecting the dots. "All real," I confirmed. "The business was successful before I won the lottery. The foundation and some of the other changes came after." Marcus, who had been quietly absorbing this revelation, suddenly laughed. "Emma, your sister is a multimillionaire. This is insane." "I can't believe this," Emma said, shaking her head. "Sarah, this is the most incredible thing I've ever heard." But I could see the wheels turning in my parents' minds, and I recognized the look that was forming on their faces. It was the same calculating expression I had seen when they were deciding how to allocate resources between Emma and me growing up. Except now, I was the one with the resources. "Sarah," Mom said, her voice taking on a tone I knew well. The voice she used when she wanted something. "This is wonderful news. I mean, it's overwhelming, but wonderful. We're so happy for you." "Are you?" I asked simply. "Of course we are." Dad jumped in. "You're our daughter. Your success is our success." The words hit me like a physical blow. My success is our success. After years of dismissing my achievements, minimizing my potential and excluding me from family financial decisions, they were now ready to claim ownership of my good fortune. Is it? I asked, my voice remaining calm despite the emotions churning inside me. Because 3 years ago, when I graduated summa cum laude and got my first job, you said it was a solid start. When Emma got average grades, you gave her a $50,000 trust fund. The party had gone completely quiet now. Everyone was listening to this family drama unfold in real time. Sarah, Mom said, her voice taking on a placating tone that was different. We've always been proud of you. Have you? I asked. Because I don't remember you being proud when I bought my first car with money I earned myself while Emma got hers as a gift. I don't remember you being proud when I paid for my own college while Emma's was fully funded. I don't remember you being proud when I started my own business because you never asked about it. We made mistakes, Dad admitted, his voice heavy. But we're family. We can work through this. Can we? I asked. Because until 5 minutes ago, you had no interest in working through anything. Until 5 minutes ago, I was still the daughter who just doesn't have what it takes. The reference to their old words hit its mark. Dad flinched and Mom's face flushed with embarrassment. We never said that, Mom protested. You said exactly that, I replied. Christmas dinner, 3 years ago. Those were your exact words when I questioned why Emma was getting a trust fund and I wasn't. Emma looked stricken. Mom, Dad, is that true? The silence from my parents was answer enough. Look, I said, my voice softening, I didn't come here tonight to humiliate anyone or to relitigate the past. I came to congratulate Emma and to let you all know that I'm doing well. Very well, as it turns out. So what happens now? Emma asked quietly. Now, I said, we figure out if we can build a real relationship based on who we actually are, not who you thought I was or who I needed to be to earn your approval. I looked directly at my parents. I don't need your validation anymore. I don't need your financial support. I don't need you to believe in me because I believe in myself. But if you want to be part of my life, it has to be genuine. Of course we want to be part of your life, Mom said quickly. You're our daughter. Then prove it, I said simply. Not because I won the lottery, but because I'm your daughter who has been working hard and achieving success for years while you looked the other way. The weight of that challenge settled over the patio like a heavy blanket. David, who had been standing quietly nearby during this entire exchange, stepped forward. Sarah, I hate to interrupt, but we should probably discuss next steps regarding the media situation. Of course, I said, grateful for the interruption. Everyone, this is David Chen, my attorney. David, this is my family. The formal introduction seemed to break some of the tension, and people began talking in smaller groups again. But I could feel the shift in energy. Everyone was looking at me differently now. Not just my immediate family, but my extended family, Emma's friends, Marcus's parents. I was no longer Sarah, the overlooked daughter. I was Sarah, the lottery winner. Emma approached me as I was talking logistics with David. Sarah, can we talk privately for a minute? Of course. We walked to a quiet corner of the yard, away from the crowd. I need to apologize, Emma said, her eyes filled with tears. I knew Mom and Dad treated you differently, but I didn't realize how bad it was. I was so focused on my own life that I didn't see how unfair they were being. Emma, this isn't your fault, I said, meaning it. You were just being their daughter. You can't be responsible for their choices. But I could have stood up for you more. I could have questioned why I was getting things you weren't. I was selfish. You were young, I corrected. And you were receiving the love and support that every child deserves. I'm not angry at you for that. Are you angry at them? I considered the question carefully. I was angry for a long time. Now I'm mostly sad. Sad that they missed out on knowing who I really am. Sad that it took winning the lottery for them to pay attention to my life. Do you think you can forgive them? I think I can try, I said. But forgiveness doesn't mean pretending the past didn't happen. It means acknowledging it and choosing to move forward despite it. Emma hugged me tightly. I love you, Sarah. And I'm proud of you. Not because you won the lottery, but because of everything you accomplished before that. Your business, your independence, your strength. You're incredible. For the first time in years, I felt the bond with my sister that I had thought was lost forever. I love you too, Em. And I'm happy for you and Marcus. You deserve all the joy in the world. Will you be my maid of honor? She asked suddenly. I know things have been complicated, but I can't imagine getting married without you beside me. The request caught me off guard, but the answer came immediately. Yes, I said. I'd be honored. As we walked back toward the party, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned to see Dad standing behind us, his expression serious, but not hostile. Sarah, could I speak with you for a moment? Emma squeezed my hand and went to rejoin Marcus, leaving Dad and me alone. I owe you an apology, he said without preamble. A big one. Dad. No, let me say this, he interrupted. Your mother and I failed you. We got so caught up in Emma's achievements that we stopped seeing yours. We took your independence and strength for granted, and we treated you like you didn't need our support because you were so capable of taking care of yourself. But I did need your support, I said quietly. I needed you to believe in me. I know, he said, his voice breaking slightly. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry it took you winning the lottery for me to realize what we had missed. I'm sorry you had to succeed without us cheering you on. It was the most honest conversation I had ever had with my father. I don't know how to fix this, he continued. I don't know how to make up for years of not being the father you deserved. You can't make up for it, I said, and saw him flinch. But you can do better going forward. You can get to know who I am now, not who you thought I was. I'd like that, he said. If you're willing. I'm willing to try, I replied. We stood there for a moment, both of us processing the weight of the conversation. Your mother wants to talk to you too, he said. But she's struggling with how to approach this. She's embarrassed about how she's treated you, but she's also proud and doesn't want to admit she was wrong. I know, I said. I know, Mom. Give her time, he requested. She'll come around. As if summoned by our conversation, Mom appeared beside us. She looked nervous and uncertain, which was unusual for her. Sarah, she said, I wanted to say. I think we should. She stopped, frustrated with herself. Mom, just say what you're thinking, I encouraged gently. I'm proud of you, she said in a rush. I should have said it years ago, but I'm proud of you. Your business, your success, your independence. You became an amazing woman despite us, not because of us. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was honest, and that meant something. Thank you, I said. That means a lot. I'd like to learn more about your business, she continued. And your foundation. I'd like to understand what you've built. I'd like that too. And Sarah, she said, glancing around to make sure no one was listening, I need you to know that we're not going to ask you for money. I know that's probably what you're expecting, but we're not going to do that. This statement surprised me. I had been bracing for exactly that conversation. I appreciate you saying that, I replied. We made our own choices, she continued. We have to live with the consequences. You don't owe us anything. It was perhaps the most mature thing I had ever heard my mother say. But if there's ever anything we can do for you, she added, anything at all, I hope you'll let us know. Actually, I said, an idea forming. There is something. What? I'd like you to join the board of my foundation. Both of you. Mom, your experience in education would be valuable, and Dad, your financial background would help with oversight. They both looked shocked. You want us to work with you? Dad asked. I want us to work together on something meaningful, I said. Something that helps kids who are in situations like I was. Kids who need someone to believe in them. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Sarah, we don't deserve that opportunity. Maybe not, I said. But those kids deserve the best help we can give them. And despite everything, you both have skills that could make a real difference. We'd be honored, Dad said, his voice thick with emotion. As the evening wound down, I found myself surrounded by family members who were eager to reconnect, to hear about my business, to learn about my foundation. The dynamic had shifted completely from the beginning of the party. But the person I most wanted to talk to was Abuela Rosa. I found her sitting quietly in her chair, watching the festivities with satisfaction. Abuela, I said, sitting beside her, thank you. For what, Mija? For believing in me when no one else did. For never giving up on me. For knowing this day would come. She reached over and took my hand in hers. I didn't know you would win the lottery, she said with a smile. But I knew you would succeed. I knew you would become exactly who you were meant to be. I love you, I said, squeezing her hand. I love you too, Mija. And I'm proud of the woman you've become. As I prepared to leave the party, Emma pulled me aside one more time. Sarah, I have to ask, what are you going to do with all that money? I thought about the question for a moment. I'm going to use it to build something meaningful, I said. The foundation is just the beginning. I want to create opportunities for kids who are overlooked, who need someone to invest in their potential. That's perfect, Emma said. That's exactly what you should do. And I'm going to take care of the people who took care of me, I added. Starting with Abuela Rosa. She's going to be so excited, Emma said with a laugh. Actually, she already knows. I bought her a house last month. Nothing too big, just a beautiful little place with a garden and a view of the mountains. But I wanted her to have somewhere peaceful to enjoy her golden years. You bought Abuela a house? Emma's eyes widened. Among other things, I said with a smile. She's been the most important person in my life for the past few years. She deserves to be spoiled a little. As I walked toward my car, I felt lighter than I had in years. The weight of family disappointment and unmet expectations had been lifted from my shoulders. I wasn't the forgotten daughter anymore. I wasn't the one who didn't have what it takes. I was Sarah Martinez, successful entrepreneur, philanthropist, and lottery winner. But more importantly, I was someone who had learned to believe in herself when no one else would. My driver opened the car door, and I settled into the back seat for the drive home. As we pulled away from my parents' house, I could see the party still going strong in the backyard, my family and friends processing the revelation that would change everything. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for giving us another chance. I love you. I smiled as I typed back, I love you too. See you soon for wedding planning. Tomorrow, the news would break. My identity as Arizona's lottery winner would be public knowledge. My life would change in ways I couldn't even imagine yet. But tonight, I had done something I thought might be impossible. I had reconciled with my family on my own terms. Not because I needed their approval, but because I chose to offer them grace. The girl who had been overlooked and underestimated had become a woman who could afford to be generous, not just with money, but with forgiveness. 6 months after Emma's engagement party, my life had transformed in ways that went far beyond the obvious changes that come with sudden wealth. The media attention following the lottery announcement had been intense, but manageable, thanks to David's careful handling of interviews and public appearances. I had purchased a stunning 8,000 square foot estate in Paradise Valley, complete with a pool, tennis court, and guest house where Abuela Rosa now lived. She had initially protested the extravagance, but I convinced her that I needed her close by, and she eventually agreed to move in. Besides, I had told her, what good is having all this space if I can't share it with the person who matters most to me? My business had grown exponentially, not just because of the publicity from the lottery win, but because the financial freedom allowed me to take on more ambitious projects and hire the best talent available. We now had 35 employees and had expanded into markets across the Southwest. The Martinez Family Foundation had become my primary passion project. We had awarded over $2 million in educational grants in our first year, helping hundreds of students attend college, trade schools, and specialized training programs. Mom and Dad had joined the board as promised, and watching them work with the scholarship recipients had been surprisingly healing for all of us. You know, Dad said during one of our monthly board meetings, working with these kids has made me realize how much potential we missed in you. They remind me of who you were, determined, capable, just needing someone to believe in them. The difference is, I replied, these kids have us believing in them from the start. My relationship with my parents had improved dramatically, though it required ongoing effort from all of us. We met for dinner every Sunday now, and while conversations sometimes touched on painful topics from the past, we were building new memories and genuine connections. Mom had become one of my strongest supporters, frequently bragging to her friends about my business success and foundation work. My daughter, the entrepreneur, she would say with pride that seemed authentic rather than performative. Emma's wedding had been a beautiful celebration where I served as maid of honor, and she had surprised everyone by dedicating part of her reception speech to thanking me for showing her what real strength looks like. But perhaps the most meaningful change was in my relationship with myself. The financial security had removed a layer of stress I hadn't even realized I was carrying, but more importantly, the family reconciliation had healed wounds I thought were permanent. I no longer felt like I had to prove my worth to anyone. The validation I had spent years seeking from my parents had been replaced by self-acceptance and confidence that came from within. 3 months after the lottery announcement, I received a call that would lead to one of the most rewarding experiences of my new life. Ms. Martinez, the voice on the phone said, "This is Dr. Jennifer Walsh from Arizona State University. I'm calling about a student who has applied for one of your foundation scholarships." "Of course," I replied. "How can I help?" "Well, this student's application reminded me so much of your own story that I felt I should call you personally. Her name is Maria Santos. She's 19 years old, and she's been working 3 jobs to pay for community college while supporting her younger siblings." "That does sound familiar," I said with a smile. "She's exceptionally bright, but she's been overlooked by her family because she's not the traditional star student. Her younger brother gets most of the attention and support. Maria's GPA is 3.9. She's president of the business club, and she started a small tutoring service to earn extra money." "She sounds exactly like the kind of student we want to support," I said. "What does she need?" "She's been accepted to ASU's business program, but she needs help with tuition, books, and living expenses. The total would be about $25,000 per year." "Approved," I said immediately. "But I'd like to meet her if she's interested." "I think she'd be thrilled to meet you." 2 weeks later, I sat across from Maria Santos in my office, looking at a young woman who reminded me so much of myself at that age that it was almost startling. She was nervous but determined, articulate but humble, clearly capable but uncertain about her own potential. Ms. Martinez, she said, I can't tell you how much this scholarship means to me. It's literally changing my life. Maria, I replied, I want you to know that this scholarship isn't charity. It's an investment. We're investing in you because we believe in your potential. Thank you, she said, tears forming in her eyes. No one has ever said that to me before. Well, I'm saying it now, and I'm going to keep saying it. You have everything it takes to succeed. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. As she left that day, I realized that this was what I wanted to do with my wealth and success. Not just give money away, but give young people the belief in themselves that I had to learn to develop on my own. Over the following months, I mentored Maria and dozens of other scholarship recipients. I helped them navigate college applications, career decisions, and family dynamics. I watched them grow in confidence and achievement, and I felt more fulfilled than I ever had in my life. One evening, as I was reviewing applications for our second round of scholarships, Abuela Rosa knocked on my office door. Mija, you're working too late again, she said, bringing me a cup of tea. I'm almost finished, I replied, accepting the tea gratefully. You know, she said, settling into the chair across from my desk, I've been thinking about something. What's that? When you were young, you used to tell me that you felt invisible in your own family. Do you remember? I remember. But you were never invisible to me, she continued. And now, you're making sure that other young people like you are never invisible either. That's the goal, I said. It's more than a goal, Mija. It's your calling. This is what you were meant to do with your life. Not just the business, not just the money, but this. Making sure that kids who feel forgotten know that someone sees them. As always, Abuela Rosa had articulated something I felt, but hadn't quite put into words. You know what the best part is? I said. What? I don't need my parents' approval anymore, but I have it. I don't need financial security, but I have it. I don't need to prove that I'm worthy of love and support because I've learned to love and support myself. And now you can love and support others, she added. Exactly. 6 months later, I was invited to speak at the annual Arizona Women in Business Conference. The auditorium was packed with over 2,000 women entrepreneurs, and I was both nervous and excited to share my story. My name is Sarah Martinez, I began, and I want to talk to you about the difference between being lucky and being ready for luck. I told them about growing up as the overlooked daughter, about working multiple jobs to pay for college, about starting my business with nothing but determination and a belief that I could succeed. I won $347 million in the lottery, I said, but that money didn't make me successful. It amplified success I had already built through years of hard work, determination, and refusing to accept other people's limitations on my potential. The audience was completely engaged, and I could see women nodding in recognition as I described the challenges of being underestimated and dismissed. The real lottery I won, I continued, wasn't the Powerball. It was learning to believe in myself when no one else did. It was developing the confidence to take risks, to start my own business, to trust my own judgment even when others doubted me. Money can change your circumstances, but it can't change who you are at your core. Success, real success, comes from knowing your own worth and refusing to accept anything less than what you deserve. The standing ovation lasted for several minutes, and afterward, dozens of women approached me to share their own stories of overcoming doubt and discrimination. But the moment that meant the most to me came at the end of the evening, when a young woman who looked to be about 22 years old approached me nervously. Ms. Martinez, she said, my name is Jessica, and I just wanted to thank you for your speech. I'm starting my own business, and my family thinks I'm crazy. They keep telling me I should get a real job and stop chasing impossible dreams. What kind of business? I asked. I'm developing an app that helps college students find affordable textbooks. I've been working on it for 2 years, and I know it could be successful, but everyone thinks I'm wasting my time. Jessica, I said, let me ask you something. Do you believe in your idea? Absolutely. Do you have a solid business plan? Yes, I've done extensive market research and financial projections. Then the only opinion that matters is yours. Don't let other people's lack of vision limit your potential. I handed her my business card. Email me your business plan. I'd like to take a look at it. Her eyes widened. Really? Really. And Jessica? Whether your app succeeds or fails, the experience of building it will teach you things you can't learn any other way. That's valuable regardless of the outcome. 3 months later, Jessica's app launched successfully, and I had the pleasure of providing both mentorship and a small investment to help her scale the business. These moments, supporting young entrepreneurs, mentoring scholarship recipients, watching people discover their own potential, had become the most rewarding part of my new life. But perhaps the most meaningful moment came exactly 1 year after Emma's engagement party. My parents had invited me to dinner, and as we sat around the same table where so many difficult conversations had taken place, Dad cleared his throat. Sarah, he said, your mother and I have been talking, and we want to tell you something. What is it? I asked. We've been volunteering at the community center, helping adults who are trying to get their GEDs. And working with these students has made us realize something important. He paused, looking at Mom, who nodded encouragingly. We spent so many years focusing on what we thought success should look like that we missed the success that was right in front of us. You were achieving, growing, building something meaningful, and we were too narrow-minded to see it. What your father is trying to say, Mom interjected, is that we're sorry. Not just for the money and the favoritism, but for not seeing who you really were. For not celebrating your achievements. For making you feel like you weren't enough. You were always enough, Dad continued. More than enough. You were extraordinary, and we were too foolish to recognize it. I felt tears forming in my eyes. Thank you for saying that. It means everything to me. We love you, Mom said simply. We've always loved you, but we haven't always shown it well. We're learning to do better. We're all learning, I replied. That's what families do. Later that evening, as I was driving home to my estate in Paradise Valley, I thought about the journey that had brought me to this moment. The overlooked daughter had become a confident woman. The struggling college student had become a successful entrepreneur. The family disappointment had become someone her parents were proud to call their daughter. But perhaps most importantly, the girl who had felt invisible had become someone who made sure other people never felt forgotten. I pulled into my driveway and saw lights on in Abuela Rosa's guest house. At 83, she was still the wisest person I knew, and I realized I wanted to share this evening with her. I knocked on her door, and she opened it with a smile. Mija, how was dinner with your parents? Perfect, I said, hugging her. It was perfect. I'm glad, she said, leading me to her kitchen where she immediately began preparing tea. Tell me everything. As I recounted the evening's conversation, I realized that this was what I had been seeking all along, not just financial success or family reconciliation, but the deep satisfaction that comes from knowing you've become exactly who you were meant to be. Abuela, I said as she handed me a cup of tea, do you remember what you told me when I was struggling to pay for college? You said that some people bloom early, and some people bloom when the world is ready to appreciate their beauty. See, I remember, she said, settling into her favorite chair. I think I'm finally blooming, I said with a smile. No, Mija, she replied, her eyes twinkling. You bloomed years ago. The world is just finally paying attention. 2 years after that life-changing engagement party, I found myself standing in front of another crowd, but this time the setting was very different. I was at the grand opening of the Martinez Educational Center, a 50,000 square foot facility that housed our foundation's programs, a business incubator for young entrepreneurs, and a community center offering free tutoring and mentorship services. The building was located in the neighborhood where I had grown up, and as I looked out at the crowd of families, students, local officials, and media representatives, I felt a profound sense of completion. 5 years ago, I said into the microphone I was working 3 jobs to pay for college, driving a 15-year-old Honda Civic, and wondering if I would ever be able to afford the life I dreamed of having. The crowd was completely silent, hanging on every word. I thought success meant proving my worth to people who had already decided I wasn't worth their investment. I thought I needed external validation to feel valuable. I thought if I just worked hard enough, achieved enough, earned enough, the people who mattered to me would finally see me. I paused, looking out at the faces in front of me. In the front row sat my parents, Emma and Marcus, and Abuela Rosa in her wheelchair, now 85 but still sharp as ever. Behind them were dozens of scholarship recipients, former employees, clients, and community members whose lives had intersected with mine over the years. But the real transformation in my life didn't happen when I won the lottery, I continued. It happened when I stopped waiting for other people to recognize my value and started recognizing it myself. This center isn't just about money or programs or services. It's about making sure that every young person who walks through these doors knows that someone believes in them. It's about creating a place where potential is recognized and nurtured, regardless of family circumstances or background. Every scholarship we award, every business we help launch, every student we mentor is a reminder that being overlooked doesn't mean being without value. Sometimes the people who have to fight hardest for recognition are the ones who have the most to offer. After the ceremony, as people toured the facility and enjoyed the reception, I found myself in a quiet corner with Maria Santos, who had graduated from ASU the previous month and was now working as a program coordinator at the center. "Ms. Martinez," she said, "I want you to know that you didn't just change my life with that scholarship. You changed how I see myself." "How so?" I asked. "Before I met you, I thought I had to apologize for wanting more than what my family expected for me. I thought ambition was selfish. But you taught me that believing in myself isn't arrogant. It's necessary." "That's exactly right," I said. "And now you're teaching that to other students." "It's the best job I've ever had," she said with a grin. Turns out, helping people discover their potential is even more rewarding than discovering your own. Later that evening, after the last guest had left and the cleanup was complete, I drove to the cemetery where I went every month to visit my grandfather's grave. He had died when I was 12, but I remembered him as someone who had always encouraged my questions and ambitions. "Abuelo," I said, sitting cross-legged on the grass beside his headstone, "I wish you could have seen today. I think you would have been proud." The desert evening was quiet except for the sound of wind through the palm trees that lined the cemetery grounds. "I built something good," I continued. "Not just with the money, but with everything I learned from feeling invisible for so long. I turned that pain into purpose." As I drove home, I reflected on how completely my life had changed, not just in circumstances, but in perspective. The girl who had once felt like she didn't matter had created a legacy of helping others recognize their own worth. My phone rang as I was pulling into my driveway. It was Emma. "Sarah, I just wanted to say how proud I am of you," she said without preamble. "Today was incredible. but more than that, watching you over the past few years has been inspiring. Thank you, Em. That means a lot. I've been thinking about something, she continued. Marcus and I have been talking about starting a family soon, and when we do, I want our kids to know their Tia Sarah as the woman who turned being underestimated into her superpower. That's beautiful, I said, feeling tears form in my eyes. I want them to know that sometimes the people who have to work hardest for recognition are the ones who end up making the biggest difference. I want them to know that real strength comes from believing in yourself when no one else does. And I want them to know, I replied, that they have an aunt who will always believe in them no matter what. After we hung up, I sat in my car for a few more minutes, processing the day and the conversation. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to support young people who needed someone to see their potential. There would be foundation board meetings, scholarship interviews, and mentoring sessions with entrepreneurs who were just starting their journeys. But tonight, I wanted to savor the moment of completion. Not the end of my story, but the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. I thought about the lottery ticket that had changed everything, but I realized that wasn't quite accurate. The lottery ticket had amplified everything, but the real change had happened gradually, over years of learning to value myself, trust my instincts, and build something meaningful despite lack of support. The money had given me options, security, and the ability to help others on a scale I never could have imagined. But the confidence, resilience, and determination that made me who I was, those had been earned through years of being overlooked and choosing to thrive anyway. As I finally walked toward my front door, I saw Abuela Rosa sitting on her patio, wrapped in a shawl and looking up at the stars. Couldn't sleep either? I asked, settling into the chair beside her. I was thinking about your grandfather, she said. He would have been so proud of you today, Mija. I was just at his grave telling him about the center, I said. He knows, she said simply. And he's proud. We all are. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, two women from different generations who had supported each other through years of challenge and change. Abuela, I said finally, thank you for never giving up on me. Mija, she replied, reaching over to squeeze my hand, you never gave up on yourself. I just reminded you of what you already knew. What's that? That you were always enough. You were always worthy. You were always destined for something beautiful. As we sat under the desert stars, I realized that winning the lottery had been the least important thing that had happened to me in the past few years. Learning to believe in myself, reconciling with my family, and finding my purpose in helping others, those were the real prizes. The overlooked daughter had become a woman who made sure others were never overlooked. The girl who had to fight for recognition had become someone who freely gave recognition to others. The young woman who had felt invisible had become someone whose impact would be felt for generations. But perhaps most importantly, I had learned that you don't need other people's permission to be successful, valuable, or worthy of respect. You just need to believe in yourself enough to keep going, even when no one else understands your vision. You know what the best part is? I said to Abuela Rosa. What's that, Mija? This is just the beginning. She smiled, and in that smile I saw years of wisdom, faith, and unshakable belief in the potential of the human spirit. See, she said, the best is yet to come. And as I looked out at the lights of Phoenix stretching toward the mountains, I knew she was right. The lottery had changed my bank account, but I had changed my life. And now I was helping others change theirs. That night, I fell asleep not as Sarah Martinez, the lottery winner, but as Sarah Martinez, the woman who had learned to see her own worth and was dedicated to helping others see theirs. The girl who had once felt forgotten had become unforgettable. If you made it this far in my story, I want you to know that hitting that like button and leaving a comment would mean the world to me. Share this with someone who needs to hear that being underestimated is not the end of the story. It's often the beginning of the best chapter. 5 years have passed since that engagement party that changed everything. The Martinez Educational Center has helped over 2,000 students pursue higher education, and we've launched 150 successful small businesses through our entrepreneurship program. My parents and I have built a relationship based on mutual respect and genuine connection, and Emma's children call me their favorite aunt. But here's what I want you to remember from my story. You don't need to win the lottery to transform your life. You don't need other people's approval to be successful. You don't need perfect circumstances to start building something meaningful. What you need is the courage to believe in yourself when no one else does, the determination to keep going when the path gets difficult, and the wisdom to know that your worth isn't determined by other people's recognition. To everyone out there who feels invisible, overlooked, or underestimated, your time is coming. Keep working, keep believing, keep building. The world needs what you have to offer, even if it doesn't know it yet. And remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's becoming so successful, so happy, and so fulfilled that the people who doubted you can't help but take notice. But by then, you won't need them to. You'll already know your worth. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt like the forgotten one in your family or the underestimated one in your workplace, let me know in the comments. Your story matters too. Until next time, keep believing in yourselves. You're more powerful than you know.